Hi, good day everyone. So for today, we will discuss the 10 basic international human rights standards for law enforcement. So first standard is equal protection of the law. It means everyone is entitled to equal protection under our law without discrimination based on any grounds. Law enforcement must be especially vigilant on protecting vulnerable groups such as the children, the elders, and women, and also the minorities. For example, police officer investigate a crime reported by a homeless person yan, with the same diligence and seriousness as a crime reported by a prominent business owner. Okay. Okay, and our next standard is standard 2, respectful treatment of victims. Law enforcement officials must treat all victims of crime with compassion and respect, prioritizing their safety and also their privacy. For example, when responding to a domestic violence call, an officer ensures the victim is interviewed in a private setting or away from the offender or the abuser. And next is the standard number 3 of use of force. Force should only be used when strictly necessary and to the minimum extent required by the circumstances. Like for example, an officer facing a non-compliant individual, first attempt is dapat verbal warning. And only users ano ba tawag dito? Only uses physical restraint if necessary, and applying only the force needed to gain control without causing undue injury. Our standard number 4 is about the policing nonviolent assemblies. Law enforcement should avoid using force when it comes to policing unlawful but nonviolent assemblies. If assemblies become violent, force should only be used to the minimum extent necessary to disperse them. Like for example, during peaceful protests, yon, that briefly blocks traffic, officers prioritize negotiation and communication and to guide protestors to an alternative route rather than immediately deploying do you call this riot control measures. Yeah. Standard number 5, use of lethal force. Lethal force should not be used except when strictly unavoidable to protect one's own life or the lives of others. Like for example, an officer discharge their firearm only when discreetly or only when ano ba? For example, when an officer discharge their firearms only when directly confronted by an armed individual also, and who possesses an immediate and grave threat of death or serious injury to themselves or others, and there are no other options. Standard 6, legal grounds for arrest. legal grounds for arrest. No person should be arrested unless there are clear legal grounds to do so, and the arrest must be carried out in accordance with lawful procedure. Like for example, hot pursuit or ano ba yung isa iba? Escapees, ayun, and okay. For example, an officer arrests a suspect only after obtaining a valid arrest warrant. So, we need a valid arrest warrant before we arrest the person. But there is an exception. The exception is witnessing the individual committing a crime or commit a felony and clearly informs the person of the reason for their arrest and their rights. Okay? Standard 7 is the detainees' access to their family, legal, and medical aid. Or all detainees must have access to their family, legal representative, their lawyers, their attorney, their private counsel, ayun, and any necessary medical assistance after the arrest. Like for example, upon taking a person into the custody, an officer ensures that they are allowed to make a phone call to their family or make a phone call to or inform their right to legal counsel and arrange for medical attention if the detainee reports an injury or meron or the detainee is have an illness. Standard number 8 is humane treatment of detainees. All detainees must be treated humanly. Law enforcement must not inflict, instigate, or tolerate any act of torture or ill treatment under any circumstances and must refuse to obey any order to do so. For example, a police officer ensures that a person in custody receive adequate food, water, or safe environment and never use physical or psychological coercion during interrogation. Standard number 9, refusal to obey unjust orders. Law enforcement officials or officers must not carry out, order, or cover up extrajudicial execution or disappearance and must refuse to obey any order to do so. For example, if a superior or your superior officer order you or order the officer to unlawfully detain someone indefinitely without legal process, legal grounds, or to harm a suspect outside or legal procedures, the officer must refuse the order and report it to the higher authority. Okay, last standard is medyo connected siya sa ating standard 9 is the reporting breaches. Okay, reporting breaches, all breaches of these basic standards must be reported to senior officers and to the office of the public prosecutors. Officials must do everything within their power to ensure steps are taken to investigate these breaches. Like for example, any officer who witnessed their colleague using excessive force against suspect report the incident to their superior or supervisor and internal affairs, ensuring that an investigation is initiated. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching.